I'm Jessica Jeffries. I'm a casting director and first AD for motion capture. In video games, everything's kept so top secret. I was given limited information in regards to the game itself and the characters that I was needing to cast. What's interesting is I come at it from a very specific character description, whereas the director and producers, etc., they all have a voice in their head from the voice actors that have already done the character performance. So once I take that character description, I then look to finding the best actors possible for the job.
And action!
With casting, especially for this particular game, we needed actors that are very good at taking direction, good at thinking on their feet, good at accepting things that aren't a norm. For example, suddenly switching time periods and then embodying a completely different character, whether that's human or anything else. We also needed actors that were physically aware. So when we needed the more challenging physical aspects for the characters, we need people that are switched on and could use their imagination because they've got no sets, no environments here.
I'm not wanting around to see yourself get killed. This is suicide.
With motion capture, what's really interesting is that you don't always get a lot of information to begin with. So a lot of it you learn on set in the moment. We have 3 characters each, and each of those are from different time periods. So it's just really important to be focused and really alive and in the moment, and you kind of take what you can with what the producers and the directors tell you about the characters, and then you've just got to jump in and give it all you've got.
Usually you would follow the storyline and know where you're coming from, where you're going to. But in this, if they were to give you a script, it would be 2,000 pages long because it branches so much depending on what the player does and in which direction they take you. It's too complex to try and think out thought by thought, so you just point and shoot, basically.
And action!
We read the script, so we have a general idea of what we've got, and then they play the previs, which is on the big screen at the back. You get a sense of the environment, and then they mark out things on the stage as well. So you've got to maneuver yourself through these obstacles that aren't really there.
Each day is completely different. You walk in, it's sort of, and now today you're running from Monster in the Woods, and go. So you just have to run away from Monster in the Woods and just be at the mercy of the direction and just trust that they know exactly the data that they've got so that they can make the performance from the base that you give them.
Daniel? You okay? Say something!
It's quite different to traditional acting because it's more about being spontaneous in the moment. So it's familiarising yourself with the relationship between the characters and the backstory and where they've just come from into the scene. And then when they feed you the lines, just improving the scene, what feels most real to the moment then and there.
There are definitely similarities between my 1970s character and my modern day character. Tanya was definitely a little bit of a stroppy teenager vibe to her, and that is brought into my main Taylor character because we do want to channel some of that character into the main one. And it's making sure that we pick the bits out that we want to keep, then also give Taylor a strength as well, so she's not just running around being stroppy and moody all the time. It's that idea that she has a strong character behind her. And yes, she needs a bit of encouragement, but ensuring that she's got that strength and that courage behind her just to kind of get her through these horrendous ordeals.
I've treated it as though each character's the same, and I trust that the direction will lead them to be different people, because I just play what I play, and then when they're in that environment, they will respond accordingly to that environment. And I want to try and keep like a thread between the characters so that there's like a through line there. So if I focus on that, then it'll be apparent when they're in all the different timelines, which one they're in and what they're doing and stuff like that.
Action!
It's about physicality. It's the thing that I keep saying through my head is like when I'm running like John, it's like Fat Boy running, so I'm just kind of starting to hunch myself over a bit heavier on my feet. Because I'm playing mostly John, that's the big thing that I've got to keep in my mind, is that he's a big heavy guy and he's much older, a lot less mobile than I am. There was a bit we shot when I was running a lot, and I was halfway through, I thought, my God, I'm just running like me, you know, and I had to sort of like stop and start again and find a certain particular run for John.
Get to the church! Run!
Place must have been a grocery store or something.
Is it safe?
Think so.
The performance capture in here is very different to how you'd work traditionally, in that you're more aware of the fact that there are many hands in your performance. So if I'm on stage, I know that I'm in control of that performance in its entirety. I completely own that performance. I'm responsible for what my character does on stage that night. Whereas here, I know that I'm only responsible for a part of that, and that's quite freeing actually. So I can work toward a character and give as much good data as possible, because I know that there are animators in there, there are designers in there that are all contributing toward it.
Comparing motion capture with traditional acting, they are worlds apart, but also similar in the sense that you just hark back to your training. Everything that I learned actor training, I bring onto the volume. Even though I haven't got the set or the props to help me out, it's all within the imagination. And that's something that an actor needs to be able to just tap into as and when they can. Obviously with traditional acting, you've got more of a script, you've got a bit more of a hint as to where your character is going or who your character is. Whereas the freedom that you get with motion capture is you can layer that up yourself as well. You have access to the direction of the producer for a long period of time, so you're able to build your character into something that's really sustainable for the whole game.
No! No! Let me go! I have to save her!
It's quite tricky playing mocap, especially with this where the physical performance is separate to the voice performance. You're often hearing the dialogue or reading the dialogue for the very first time, and then you have to do it straight away, so there's not a lot of time to let the thoughts settle. You have to be quite quick with it. And then often the way the actor will perform the line may be different to how you would first interpret it, so you have to make sure that your physical response works with the vocal performance.
As soon as you're working in horror, you need an exceptional level of imagination from an actor. So our actors need to be able to portray a real intensity. They need to be able to use breath and subtle elements of their performance to portray an intensity that we're at within that story.
It's slightly different because you don't have the props and the set, and that can get you into that mode and that feeling. So if you do a horror movie, then you are apprehensive because you're not sure when that actor's going to pop out, and there's smoke screen, and the set helps you with the feeling of it, whereas this, you do have to completely go back to your imagination and imagine how scared you are that you don't know that monster's going to come out from the grate and grab you.
My favourite scenes are, to be honest, the action scenes. It's kind of what I live for. I've trained in martial arts for many years, so this sort of thing is totally up my street. So when it's a bit more of a challenge, try to embrace it as much as possible.
Favourite scene so far is being pushed out of a window, because you get to fall. You know, there's like a big 3-metre platform, and you get pushed off and fall on into a squishy mat, which makes me very happy.
Anthony! Up here! What the fuck are you doing up there?
The stuntmen are great because they make everything look effortless and make sure that you do it correctly. If we were doing it, we'd probably just go full hell for leather and hit someone around the head and pull out your shoulder, but they teach you how to pick everything up and the proper way to swing to make sure you do it correctly.
Portraying the traumatic scenes is difficult because the scenes aren't always chronological, so you go into a scene of that level of emotional state and energy, and you have to click into gear straight away without necessarily the build-up. But usually you just have to respond to the other actors in the scene, and it tends to be that they give you enough that you can believe you're in this scenario and truthfully respond. And then on the other side of it, there's some scenes where it's just so tiring, where we don't stop running and we do about 10 takes of the same scene. So by the end of it, you're having to do it as if you're doing it for the first time, but really you're just knackered as a performer.
3, 2, 1, go.
The thing I found most difficult is learning how helpful I can be for an animator, and kind of go, well, I've been given lots of freedom in terms of performance and what I do, but there are a set of rules that aren't present here that will really, really help out animators. And it's trying to keep those in mind while you're performing. We have to go, oh, I have to remember the last take I did this, which was 2 months ago, I think my hands were in this position. Because you haven't necessarily got the references to go back and look at them.
It's like being a kid again. It is a chance to play and pretend. Very rarely have I ever been asked to be like the Witchfinder General or a bus driver or all these different roles that you get to play in 1 week. It's just phenomenal. We get to roll around the floor and pretend to be demons, and it's great.
Come on, you fucker!
Motion capture is the most fun job you can do as an actor because it's playing. It's what we did when we were children. You're not restricted by sets, you're not restricted by lighting setups and loads of continuity and props people around you like in film. You are just able to play and use your imagination to put yourself in the correct environment.
Yes, God, I keep saying it's loads of fun, but it is the most fun I've had with my clothes on for years. It's great.